Hi guys, I'm here at FSA Fest with Robbie Cavanagh. Good to see you, mate.
Hello, thanks for having me.
It's alright, no worries. We first heard about you a couple of years ago when you released your debut album. So where did that all come about, and was that a different style to what you're trying to do now?
I don't know if it was a different style particularly. I think we never really thought that much about style. Like, we played the music that we wanted to play, and I think it's kind of naturally developed. And I think if you look at the songs that we play now that were off the album that we released a couple of years ago, they've kind of developed naturally as kind of musicians have come and gone and people have put their input into it. And I think, yeah, it's kind of developed quite naturally, but I think it's always been this sort of kind of country folky kind of sound. But I think more recently we've kind of been recognised more as a country act, and I think that's something that's, over the last year or so, and we've sort of been asked to play the sort of country festivals and be a part of that circle, which we hadn't been previously. But yeah, I think it's been quite a natural development for us, certainly, and like the songs that we're writing now aren't, like, the bare bones of them are not very different to what I was writing back then. I think it just sort of, I suppose the style of it develops and the instrumentation changes, and yeah, it's been quite a natural thing, I think.
Yeah. I was reading another interview with you where you said that you don't see yourself as a country singer in the traditional sense.
Right.
So where does the country influence come from? Like, who were you listening to growing
up? I think, my background originally was in sort of a lot of rock music, like the Led Zeppelin, the Kinks is kind of what I grew up on, and T-Rex. And I guess the Kinks kind of touched on country music at times, and that was something that kind of developed, and as I got a little bit older I started to explore more. My dad was into a lot of people like Cat Stevens and James Taylor, acts that weren't out and out country artists, but they were artists that certainly had country influences and were kind of on the border of that style. And I think there's a lot of crossover in country music as well into other styles of music. And yeah, I think that's just something that has kind of developed naturally. Again, like that, as I say with the music, it's something that kind of the more you listen to and the more things that kind of get added to it, the more you start to feel this sort of country feel coming into it. And I was like, we work quite hard on sort of the 3-part harmonies and things like that I think just production wise kind of nods towards country music. The same with the pedal steel as well, as another thing that we had quite a lot of. But yeah, I think it's very difficult to define what country music is, and I think it's such a wide thing now that you can kind of add lots of little things, and like even just looking at this festival we're at today, like
so much variety.
Yeah, exactly. Like every act is so different, but everyone falls under the same category. Yeah. I think that says a lot about how much it's growing as well.
Yeah. And the first album was called The State of Maine. So where did the title come from? Is there any kind of connection to?
Yeah, I was in Maine for a while. I lived there. I was teaching songwriting at like a kind of like a summer camp kind of thing, and I was in a kind of rock band at the time, and the whole idea of releasing a solo album happened while I was there, and like just the thought of doing that, and sort of a lot of the songs that I wrote for that album were written while I was out there in Maine, or if not that, about what happened when I got back from Maine. And it just kind of seemed like a nice framework. I didn't want to release an album that sounded like it was kind of too much about me, because it wasn't really. It was about other people. It was about experiences that had happened, and it didn't really matter that it happened to me. It could have been anyone. So yeah, I kind of wanted a title that framed the songs collectively. And having spent that time in Maine and knowing that most of the songs were kind of inspired by what had happened there and what I'd seen and who I'd met, just seemed like a nice way of kind of framing it together, really.
You got a new single out, haven't you? Which Way to New York.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about that and the inspiration behind the songwriting.
I think Which Way to New York is the first time that we recorded a track with pedal steel in it. Simply because we didn't have a pedal steel player before that. So because it almost swapped out from, we used to have a cello, and I think that for me, like the melodies are very similar and the style of it is very similar. And we kind of swapped out the cello for the pedal steel just out of convenience more than anything. It was who was available at the time, and that's kind of developed a little bit for us. But that was the first track we recorded with steel, and it's kind of a nice kind of jaunty little track. It's got a nice travelling beat to it. I guess the writing of the song kind of came from, it was a conversation I had on a flight to New York, and without being too specific about it, I guess it was really just trying to write a song that, like, at the time we were going to New York, and it was a place I'd wanted to go for a long time and hadn't got to, and then on this journey and this conversation that we had on the flight, I started to kind of wonder whether it was the right thing, whether I should be going there at all. And the more questions that were asked, the more I was like, well, this is what I've always wanted to do, and now I'm here. I don't know if I do want it or not. And which is really just the theme of the song, really, is this kind of, trying to achieve something and then kind of second guessing it when you get there. Yeah.
And the first time we heard that track was when you did a session with Bob Harris on the Under the Apple Tree session. So how did all that come about?
That was through... I've done quite a lot of things with Bob recently. He's really kind of picked up on the music and is a fan, which is really nice. But the first time I met Bob was through... we did this thing at the Blue Coat Art Centre in Liverpool, where they did this thing where they brought the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville to Liverpool and basically recreated it and brought over some of the acts from there. We had Don Henry and Kin Ritchie came to perform as part of this little session, and I was one of the acts that was chosen to go and perform there. And it was kind of an in the round kind of thing, and Bob was there amongst a bunch of other sort of influential people. And yeah, like we each sort of performed a song, and then kind of chatted to these guys about it, and just chatted to Bob afterwards, and he really wanted me to be involved, and sent me his email address to get me down to the little studio to record that session. It's a really cool little session that he does. It's basically like, it's essentially his house. It's quite a crazy thing to just walk into his house and there's like mugs with his name on and things. It's crazy. But yeah, out in his garden, he has this kind of trailer that he has that he runs a lot of his shows from. He has a little studio in there, and he's got all his CDs in the back wall.
Like bookshelves and everything.
Yeah, it's incredible because it's like every record and every CD he's ever owned in this huge Americana and country collection. And yeah, like he films the sessions in there, and they're called Under the Apple Tree sessions because there's a big apple tree over the thing. In fact, in one of the sessions that we did, we played Boy from the Fair, and you can hear, like, partway through the track, you hear an apple land on the roof. Oh. And, like, my backing vocalist just kind of looks up at one point because it's just this, like, sound. But, yeah, like, it's a really cool little thing to be a part of, and it's a really nice idea that, and even now, like, he's doing the festivals and everything, but I really like that the name has all come from this one little cabin at the back of his house. It's really cool.
Good idea.
Yeah.
And you went on tour with Laura Oakes recently as well. That must have been a fun way to spend a couple of weeks.
It was great, yeah, it was really fun. I mean, I'm a big fan of Laura's music, and Frankie Davis as well, who was on the tour with us. And it was just great to get to basically have a free ticket to their show every night. Yeah, like I knew every word. I was just one of the fans in the crowd when they played. But yeah, it was really nice. A really great crowds. It was a really fun tour to do. Really good turnout, and yeah, just a lot of fun. I think, like, all artists love being on tour. That's like the most important thing. I always feel like, I feel like you record and you do all these other things, and they're fun, but the whole premise of them really is to develop a situation where you can gig and people will come and watch. That, for me at least. So to do tours like that is what I want to do. I want to tour all the time, and we make the records so that we have something to sell, so that people can go away and want to come again. But yeah, the touring is the greatest thing. So to get to do that with two other great acts and travel around the country is really fun. Yeah.
And you're opening for the Shires as well in a couple of weeks, aren't you? Right. Where is it? Lytham Festival?
Yeah, Lytham Festival.
Festival.
It's kind of Blackpool area. Yeah. So Lytham Festival is kind of spread over a whole week, and rather than having like one stage with loads of acts on, they have like a whole week of like headliners with a support act. Yeah. So it's the 2nd of August is opening for the Shires. It's going to be fun.
Do you prefer the festival slots or the more intimate gigs like on the Laura tour?
I think for my style of music, I think I guess like the Shires show is like a good compromise because it's kind of got the prestige and the size of a festival, but it's it's in a little venue. It's not, you know, it's not in a big open air field kind of thing. Because I think like the songs that I write and the way that my band plays is very much, it's going to have this little intimate feel to it, and you got to feel part of it. And sometimes if you're playing in a huge big field, that can get lost and the sound isn't quite as accurate as you want it to be. So like I really love festivals like FSA when it's an indoor festival, so it still has that intimacy of a gig, but with the kind of the mass exposure of a festival, I guess. But yeah, it's really nice to do all sorts of gigs. I guess that's the benefit of being an artist, is you get to do all sorts of various types of gigs.
Yeah. What's the plan for the rest of the year for you, music-wise and touring-wise?
So we have a few more shows coming up in August. We've got a couple of festivals and a couple of gigs around. And then come September, we go back into the studio to record the second album, which will be out in March next year. So from September onwards, really the focus is on recording the album. We've got a lot of PR and a couple of singles released in November onwards. So that kind of takes up the rest of the year for us until March next year, when we'll release it just before Country to Country, the album comes out.
Okay.
And then a sort of album launch tour in April.
And good luck for tonight.
Thank you very much.
What time are you on?
9:30.
9:30.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it?
Very much so, yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. We've rehearsed quite hard for this. It's sometimes difficult kind of getting a whole band together because I use a lot of musicians and everyone's busy doing lots of other shows and things. So it's really nice when you get to do a string of shows where the full band are there with you. So and also being a solo act, a lot of people like want you to play solo because it's kind of an easier setup than bringing the whole band. So it's nice when you get to do a show like this where you can have the full band on. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Got a couple of new songs as well tonight.
Oh, good stuff.
Looking
forward to it.
Yep. We'll see how the new songs go. But yeah.
Yeah, it should be good. Really looking forward to it. Well, thanks for having a chat.
No, thanks for having me. Thank you very much.
And we'll see you in a bit on stage.
Sure will.
Looking forward
See
to
you
it.
then.
All right. Signing out from FSA Fest.